All right. So yeah. So and thanks to all this work we've done, you enjoyed 15 minutes of numbers now. So that's your treat for the end of the day. You know, after 6, that's what you want. So if you initially just brief description of the sample and what we have. So you'll see it's not perfect because we had to do with it was a big effort to data collection. So while it's not perfect, there's still enough that we can do further work beyond what I'm presenting today, which is really the preliminary results. We have a lot to do further work on the data and introduce different control variables there. So first, the geographical split. A little comment. So we wanted Australia there because I was in Australia, because yeah, that was part of the consortium, and the other countries were mainly selected based on different assessments of the most innovative countries according to different rankings, and then a few practical issues and some where we could have the numbers. So altogether we have 290 participants in the survey. And we have a spectrum of countries with different characteristics, so we can do further work on that. The next one is the industry. Again, there's a bit of an overrepresentation of information and communication. So when we look at the overall impact of social media, we have to keep that in mind. However, when we look at correlation, then we can work. I mean, there's enough in this group that we can work and try to see if there is an industry effect. And there's a broad spectrum of industries there as well. Now, the third element is the size. If you go to the next one, is the size of companies. Again, broad spectrum. We have micro companies, we have small, we have medium and large. That's identified in the survey, so we can distinguish the different size. Obviously, we would have liked to have a few more small companies, which is the smallest clusters, but there's plenty there to work with. So now, if we go to the main results, and again, we are talking about countries that are innovative, but there was no selection of companies based on their innovativeness. So that was a random selection of companies. If we looked at 3 phases in innovation, the ideation phase, so the initial phase where it's a bit of a mystery, fundamental R&D, idea generation, ideation and ID screening, the design, so when we push that further, conceptual development, technical implementation, and then the testing and commercialization. Well, what's really impressive is when you see really the percentage of companies who say they do use social media for this. So if we're looking at the smashing effect, well, the first level of thinking is, well, it's there. Companies are using across the board very broadly social media for innovation. In numbers close to 90% of the companies we surveyed. So I'm not sure we had an expectation that would be so high. It's really a bit of an overwhelming result. The impact is very strong. Second aspect is the type of benefits that they perceive in using social media, and there's an incredible effect on communication, which is, a bit expected. So this first table is quite, aligned with the idea that social media will increase information exchange, communication, and even knowledge exchange. So that works for external communication, which is important with, if we have an idea of open innovation, where we work with others or improving the way we do things in the company, but also diffusion of information and knowledge and internal communications. And the numbers are even stronger than when we looked before at the phases of innovation. So that's overwhelming as well. Now, we'll go on to other aspects and other elements that were noted as impact of social media. The numbers are still high, but are less than they are for communication. So the other block is really what is impacted, and they are presented there. According to the people who said very often to always, but a lot of respondents. So it was, sorry, I should have explained that, 1 respondent per company, which were in a position such as innovation director or R&D director or social media person. If we aggregate sometimes to very often to always, we have still a huge majority of companies who noted an impact. So higher revenues, which is understandable for innovation, but also efficiency, productivity, entry to new markets, and even cost reduction and a direct connection to profit. So even if cost reduction is one of the lowest in terms of very often and always, and if we aggregate these two, that's 74, so it's one of the lowest percentage. We still have three quarters of the company who did indicate that there was an impact in cost reduction. So it's really, the first conclusion there is it's a very strong impact. It cuts across different phases of innovation, and it has an impact of really very important strategic aspect for the organizations. So yeah, smashing again. Now we looked at different things. One thing was the typology of social media for innovation. As Pierre-Jean said, there are many of these, but we focused on one where we distinguished public social media, the thing everybody knows and everybody uses, such as Facebook. Company-built social media that ad hoc and built by the company. Innovation intermediary social media, where you have an organization that will play this role of helping you leverage social media for innovation, and company licensed social media, which is private solution that have been licensed for a company. So we have looked at how these were used, and you'll see a few figures now about that. In terms of general use, well, the public social media are still vastly dominant in this landscape compared to the three other categories. We'll come back to that, but one of the reasons for this is that only mainly big companies are using the three other types of solutions, where SMEs are still, could say, stuck, or with the resources they have, they are focusing on public social media. So that's part of the explanation. But so there's still a big gap between what Pierre-Jean was presenting about the first case study and what a lot of companies have, the toys they have to play with, which is mainly public social media. So if we look at the different types of social media for the different types of innovation, again, if we look at the overall, we are in the same types of figure with. And not surprisingly, the marketing, design, and advertising, and the in connection to product and services. So innovation is those areas are the most impacted. But we also have here organization and process. And 84% of companies says social media has had an impact in our capacity to change our organization and process. And we're looking in a mix where there are quite a few SMEs there. So it is an impact across the board. Again, if we look at the obviously what's used most, well, it changes a bit depending on the type of innovation. So you see that when we're looking at business model and logistic delivery or channel, which could admittedly be a subset of elements comprising business model, the curve is inverted. So in blue we have the public social media, mainly used for product, service, organization, process, marketing, and design. And the other one are, even if it's slightly dominant for, company license and company built are dominant for business model and logistics and delivery. Innovation intermediary are still much more marginal than the others. This one is quite interesting, and I've already actually, I've broken already the suspense around that one, but it's, that's ranked by size. So remember, we're at the top here, we're the micro, the small, the medium, and the big companies. And you see that everybody's using public social media, but when you look at the other, it's directly connected to the size. So company built, 40, 46, or 47, 63, 69. So you increase the size, you increase the percentage of company built, and it starts really to kick in with rather large, medium or large companies. Company license, same thing. It grows with the size of the company, and intermediary innovators, again, grows with the size. And there's definitely a focus for big companies who can afford this type of solution and launch into it. All right. Now, the thing is incredible impact, but also it's interesting that we have almost the same percentage of people saying there's a high risk associated to that. Actually, often these percentages are higher to the actual impact percentage. So people are very conscious about the risk, and they list this risk. Again, around 80% of companies says there is a reputation risk. There could be viruses. There could be privacy concerns. It can be, there can be fraud. It can be hijacked. Sensitive information can be shared in situations where it shouldn't. People can use that to imitate info leaks. So basically, there's a very strong consciousness among these companies who use social media for innovation that there is a big risk there. And so behind that, there's probably the idea that all these risks are not fully controlled as for now. And again, a lot of same thing for the challenges. If we look at people, who agree that there is a challenge, it's two-thirds, three-quarters of the respondents who said, well, we still have organizational challenges. So we are doing it. We see an impact, but we haven't sorted out everything that needs to be sorted out to really optimize the use of social media, which gives us a sense that it's still early days. I mean, this contrast between the breadth of use, the impact that people can see in their organization, but the risk and the barriers, the technical organization and behavioral challenges that are still there is an indication that there's still quite a bit of work to do. Now, we've asked also what they felt were the key elements that should be put forward to control the risk. And that part is probably more expected. There's nothing really very new there, but there are common elements for all types of social media, which is we want, for employees to use it, managers have to use it. They have to role model, they have to do it, and then once they have started doing it, others will do it as well. And also training. Training is in terms of skill, but also reassuring that we won't reach any policies, that we won't leak things that shouldn't be leaked. So there are a lot of reassurance also behind the training. So that's for all categories. And then there are specific ones for three categories. For public social media, people want senior managers. I compared for the other one, it was all managers. So executives, senior managers to use the social media so that it gives a direction, it gives a sense of the tone maybe, and the type of message that are acceptable for the organization, the supportive culture. And that means that the type of communication model that's applied in the organization has to be adapted to social media. And I'm sure we all have in mind companies that are very controlling on their communication and who are not fully ready for that. We're still struggling with the idea that any employee can be a voice and an advocate for the company. Well, obviously, they fear that they won't be a voice or an advocate in favor of the company, which raises other issues. They should deal with it and not, just control social media. They should probably deal with the issue. Company build and license social media. Specific solutions. Facebook, everybody knows how to use Facebook. But here, that's a bit more tricky. We need IT support. We need more precise rules and guidelines, not just role modeling, clear responsibilities for content. So we see people feel if it's not a tool that we're used to, that is more common, we need much more support to be able to use it in a useful and meaningful way. And innovation intermediary, that's just one element that came out, which is internal rules and guidelines. We don't have a lot behind that, maybe in terms of how do we, these people are interacting, are a bridge between us and some external communities. How do we deal with that? I mean, all the risk and the barriers that we saw before can manifest in this three actor interaction. So I guess there's a sense that the role of these actors has to be framed in a way that's reassuring for users. There you go. So that's our first snapshot. We have already put a report online. We can provide you with the link that's on the Center for Business and Social Innovation website at UTS. I'm sure it will be very soon on University in Geneva and Institute of Science and Technology. What do I see? I have Tudor as your name. Anyway, and the list website, but you can find it. We've put it yesterday, I think, online, so that you could access. There are more of these graphs and tables, probably twice as much on the report, and there'll be more to come because there's a lot of there are publications that are in the process. There's a PhD soon that will be using that as well. So there will be a flow of interesting publication coming.